The truth didn't just slip out, it detonated right in the middle of a heat wave, right in front of cameras, right at the exact moment everything was supposed to look perfectly under control. Because while London was melting under record-breaking temperatures, something far more explosive was boiling behind palace walls. A collapse so quiet, so controlled. It almost looked like nothing happened at all. But that's the illusion, isn't it? The mask, the performance, the carefully staged calm before the narrative cracks wide open.
Prince Harry's trip to the United Kingdom did not go Meghan Markle's way. Royal author Russell Myers confirmed to People Mag that the jump across the pond turned into a nightmare due to security issues that forced Markle and her kids, Archie and Lilibet.
But I think he's very keen to build a relationship with Harry.
And suddenly, it wasn't just about weather or appearances or even a routine public event. No, this was the moment Prince Harry walked into a room carrying something far heavier than expectations, a staggering $67 million legal defeat hanging over him like a shadow that refused to disappear. Imagine that contradiction. Cameras flashing, applause echoing, and inside, a financial and reputational freefall that no amount of composure could truly hide. Yet Prince Harry stepped forward anyway, smiling, joking, even daring to mention air conditioning as if that could cool down the firestorm engulfing him. But was it really a joke or a shield? Because Russell Myers didn't see humor. Russell Myers saw something colder, something calculated, a chilling display of emotional compartmentalization, where Prince Harry wasn't just speaking, Prince Harry was performing. Every word, every smirk, every attempt to appear relatable, all of it layered over a reality that was unraveling in real time. And that's where it gets unsettling. Because how does someone stand there talking about purpose and mission while knowing the headlines are screaming about a catastrophic loss? How does someone maintain that mask without it slipping? Or maybe it already was. Because the deeper you look, the clearer the pattern becomes. The public Prince Harry, the activist, the leader, the voice of Invictus, and the private Prince Harry, a man staring into what Russell Myers described as a near-total collapse. Two versions existing side by side, but moving further apart with every passing moment. And that tension, it wasn't just visible, it was suffocating. Then came the part no one expected to spiral so badly, the so-called triumphant return. It was supposed to be different this time. A reset, a reconciliation, a carefully managed re-entry into the royal sphere that would rewrite everything. But instead of unity, chaos. Instead of clarity, confusion. Because behind the polished narrative, something much messier was unfolding, demands shifting, decisions reversing, agreements collapsing before they could even settle. One day, security was non-negotiable. The next day, it was accommodation. Then it was both. Then neither. And with every sudden U-turn, the frustration inside the palace grew heavier, sharper, more visible behind closed doors. King Charles and the courtiers weren't just negotiating anymore, they were chasing a moving target that refused to stay still. Russell Myers saw it clearly. This wasn't just miscommunication. This was a breakdown. And while all of this was unfolding in London, Meghan Markle wasn't even there. That distance, it wasn't accidental. Because while Prince Harry was navigating courtroom fallout and palace tensions, Meghan Markle was in Portugal. Physically removed, but emotionally, according to Carol Malone, not at peace, not relaxed, not detached. No, something far more uncomfortable was settling in humiliation. Think about that for a second. Watching from a distance as negotiations turned into what insiders described as petty disputes over bedrooms and security protocols. Watching as the very institution once criticized became the place Prince Harry seemed to be trying to re-enter, piece by piece. And Meghan Markle, left on the sidelines, witnessing it all unfold without control, without clarity, without the powerful re-entry she had expected. Carol Malone didn't soften it. Meghan Markle felt humiliated. And suddenly, the absence made sense. Because this wasn't just about logistics anymore. This was about perception, about dignity, about how far things had drifted from the original plan. Meghan Markle didn't stand beside Prince Harry during those London moments, and maybe that silence said more than any statement ever could. Because what happens when the image of a united front starts to fracture? What happens when the narrative begins slipping beyond control? The palace, meanwhile, wasn't bending anymore. The patience had thinned. The flexibility had limits. And with every unresolved demand, every delayed decision, every visible inconsistency, the message became clearer. The rules weren't going to change this time. And just like that, the story shifted from comeback to collapse, from reconciliation to resistance, from control to something far more unpredictable. And just when it seemed like the chaos couldn't stretch any further, the narrative narrative twisted again this time into something even more unsettling, something that didn't look like collapse on the surface, but felt like quiet erosion underneath. Because while the public was still absorbing the courtroom shockwaves and the failed return, Prince Harry stepped into a completely different arena, one that didn't offer protection, didn't offer reverence, and definitely didn't offer control. The podcast moment, it looked casual, it sounded light, but beneath that surface, another crack widening. Sitting across from Joe Marler, Prince Harry tried to redefine everything in real time, not through declarations, but through identity. I'm a full-time dad, a veteran, a prince of the United Kingdom, and a duke. The order mattered, the wording mattered. Every label placed carefully, almost defensively, like pieces of a puzzle that no longer quite fit together. Because why lead with full-time dad? Why emphasize that first above everything else tied to history, to duty, to legacy? It felt less like a statement and more like a recalibration. But the room didn't treat it that way. Joe Marler didn't adjust tone. Joe Marler didn't soften edges. And that's where the moment shifted from unusual to uncomfortable. Because instead of respect, there was humor. Instead of deference, there was teasing. The pinky ring with the letter H. The jokes about appearance. The kind of remarks that once would have been unthinkable, but now, they landed. Publicly, repeatedly, and Prince Harry laughed along, but the laughter didn't erase what was happening. It amplified it. Carol Malone saw something deeper. Not comedy, not relatability, something harsher. Carol Malone described it as an indirect admission and unspoken acknowledgement that the structure that once defined Prince Harry had dissolved into something far less stable. Because what does it mean when identity becomes something you have to explain out loud? When titles come last? When the role itself feels uncertain? And Russell Myers connected the dots again, pointing to that same pattern, the constant in and out movement, the push and pull between royal identity and personal reinvention. One foot in, one foot out, never fully committed to either. And that's where the phrase started circulating, quietly at first. Then, louder Prince Harry becoming a secondary figure in a narrative no longer centered around him. Not leading, not defining, just existing within it. And that shift, it didn't go unnoticed. Because while Prince Harry was navigating that space, something far more controlled, far more calculated was unfolding behind palace gates. Highgrove, the long-awaited reunion. But even that moment, the one that should have been purely personal, carried the weight of strategy, caution, and something far colder than family warmth. This wasn't just a meeting, it was an operation. King Charles didn't leave anything to chance. No cameras, no phones, no digital trace. The kind of restrictions that don't just suggest caution, they confirm distrust. And once again, Russell Myers highlighted what others were hesitant to say out loud. This wasn't about privacy, this was about control over narrative. Because a single image, a single captured moment could shift public perception instantly. And King Charles wasn't willing to risk it. Then came the detail that changed everything. Queen Camilla's presence. Not optional, not symbolic. Mandatory. Catherine Mayer didn't frame it gently. Queen Camilla was there as a witness, a safeguard, a human firewall against reinterpretation, against distortion, against anything that could be reshaped beyond those walls. And suddenly, the entire atmosphere shifted from reunion to surveillance, from connection to containment. Carol Malone revealed the underlying fear, not hypothetical, real. The possibility of hidden recording devices, the concern that even a private moment could be captured, edited, and eventually monetized. Imagine that level of tension. A grandfather meeting grandchildren after years while simultaneously calculating every word, every gesture, every pause. That's not just distance, that's fracture. And when the meeting ended, the silence that followed said everything. No images, no statements, no visible proof that anything meaningful had happened at all. And maybe that was the point, because without evidence, the narrative stays exactly where the palace wants it controlled, contained, untouchable. But outside those gates, another move was already reshaping the story. Althorp, the Spencer estate. The shift was immediate and it was loud without saying a word. Because choosing Althorp wasn't just about comfort. It was about alignment, about identity, about drawing a line that didn't need explanation. Russell Myers and Simon Viger both saw it for what it was, a pivot, a deliberate repositioning away from Windsor towards something emotionally powerful, historically charged, and publicly resonant. And inside Althorp, the atmosphere was completely different. No restrictions, no barriers, just legacy, just memory, just the presence of something deeply personal that didn't need approval or negotiation. But even that came with questions, because was this about reconnecting with history or redefining it? Because as the narrative shifted toward Diana's legacy, the timing raised eyebrows, the contracts, the public perception, the need for relevance. It all aligned aligned too perfectly to ignore. And suddenly, what looked like a retreat started to feel like strategy. And then came the final, quiet confirmation that this wasn't just a temporary rupture. Prince William. The separation wasn't emotional anymore, it was structural. Complete, calculated, Russell Myers made it clear this wasn't anger. This was policy. No communication, no connection, no overlap between generations, and more than that, a future being shaped in advance. One where the divide isn't repaired, it's permanent. A generational firewall. Because this isn't just about two brothers anymore. It's about what comes next, who belongs, who doesn't, and who gets written out entirely.